ex-husband told me I'd never survive without him when he left me for another woman. When my dad won $12 million, he came crawling back, and I let him crawl. My ex-husband Dennis left me on a Tuesday in March, 3 weeks after our 5th anniversary. He didn't sit me down. He came home from work, put a duffel bag on the bed, and told me he'd been seeing a woman named Christy from his gym for 7 months, and that he was moving in with her. I asked if we could talk. He said there was nothing to talk about. Then he said the thing that stayed with me longer than the marriage itself. He said I should be realistic about my options because without his income I wouldn't last 6 months. He said it while zipping up his bag, not even looking at me, like he was giving me a weather update. Then he walked out, got in his truck, and drove to Christy's apartment 14 minutes away. I know it was 14 minutes because he'd been making that drive for 7 months while I was home cooking his dinner. The divorce was fast. We rented our apartment, he took the car. I had a part-time job at a veterinary clinic making $11 an hour, and he knew that, which is exactly why he said what he said. He wanted me to panic. He wanted me to call him crying and beg him to come back. I didn't. I moved into my father's spare bedroom on Polk Street and started working full-time at the clinic. It was tight. It was hard. But I'd rather share a bathroom with my 71-year-old father than spend one more second depending on a man who thought I was a charity case he could walk away from. That was March. My father won the sweepstakes in October. $12 million. He'd been entering those things for 30 years. My mother used to tease him before she passed, said he'd spent more on stamps than he'd ever win back. But the man hit. He called me from his living room, hands shaking through the phone. My father is not flashy. He paid off his house, set up a trust, and gave me $2 million because he said I'd earned it by being the only person who showed up after mom died. I put a down payment on a real house, 3 bedrooms, 15 minutes from my dad. I bought a car. I enrolled in a vet tech program I'd been wanting to do for years. For the first time in my adult life, I could breathe without doing math first. Dennis found out in November. On a Saturday morning, 7 months after he'd walked out for a woman he met on a leg press machine, he showed up at my father's house with flowers. Not my house, my father's. He told my dad he'd made a terrible mistake. My father, who had never liked Dennis but tolerated him because I asked him to, told Dennis I didn't live there anymore and shut the door. Dennis found my new address somehow, probably through his cousin who works at the post office. He showed up the following Wednesday with a bigger bouquet. He said he'd been miserable. He said Christy meant nothing. He said he wanted to come home. I asked when they broke up. He said 2 weeks ago. I did the math. He found out about the money in early November. He and Christy broke up in early November. He showed up at my dad's house a week later. The timeline wasn't complicated. I told him to leave. He came back the next weekend with a pawn shop ring. He said we could travel, buy a bigger house, start the family we'd talked about. Every plan cost money. My father's money. He hadn't mentioned love once. I asked him if I should be realistic about my options. He didn't get it. He just kept talking. I told him to get out and not come back. I shut the door and watched until his truck pulled away. I thought that was the end of it. But Dennis didn't take no for an answer. He changed tactics. 2 days later, Tony called me, a guy Dennis and I had both been friends with during the marriage. Tony said Dennis had been crying on the phone, telling people I'd come into money and turned cold. I'm not taking sides, Tony said. I just wanted you to know he's telling people you shut him out. Dennis wasn't just trying to get back into my life. He was building a story where he was the sorry man trying to fix his mistakes and I was the woman who got rich and forgot where she came from. I called my dad. Damon told me Dennis had pulled his truck up to the curb the day before and sat there for 20 minutes on his phone, pointing at the house. Over the next week, I started getting calls and texts from people I hadn't heard from in months. Dennis's cousin, a woman from my old apartment building who'd barely spoken to me when I lived there, a guy from Dennis's job. Every one of them worked the same question in. Are you and Dennis really done? I heard you came into some money. Dennis was sending scouts. I called him directly. Stop sending people to check on me. I'm not a house you're trying to buy. He put on that confused,